Hi, it's me again with CorelDraw tips and tricks, and I wasn't going to do any more, and I started playing around with it. Kind of came up with this design, and if you did it different ways, you could shade some of the ones before you duplicated them. This is made up of triangles, just like in our previous videos on this. So let's just move this out of the way. So this was made a little bit different. We're going to take the polygon tool, make a four-sided polygon, hold down the control button to make it perfect, and then turn it into a three-sided. And then what's different about this one, we're going to take a 2-point line and we're going to go, we need to find the center, like before, well, the center should be right. Let's bring in an indexing line and hit P. So there's our center. So we don't even need to do this because we can know the center. But we're going to take two lines. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Take a 2-point line and go from the center to the first node, or the node that's on that edge, right there, and then go from here to here. Now what we want to do is go ahead and take the Smart Fill tool and fill that in and nudge it out of the way. But then we want to basically cut away this line, and we still have that line. You know what? We don't want to cut it away yet. Let's try this. Let's try putting another line here to that point, and then let's nudge it out of the way. And then take that line and nudge it out of the way the same. So what you're going to have to do is go to Object, Group. Well, you're going to have to select them both. Go to Object. Well, if that doesn't ever work, take the Shape tool and just right-click and break it apart, and then you can take the Virtual Segment Delete key and hit that line. So we want these two lines. Now we can take these two lines and we can go to Effects, Blend, and we're going to blend 13 times. And that's what we get. And you could, I mean, I'm just suggesting 13. You could do more, you could do less. And then I would automatically go ahead and go to Group and break the blend apart, but I would go ahead and group them back together so they won't mess us up later. And then I'm going to dial that in. I'm going to go ahead and left click and right click on our box and move it over here just so we can kind of see where we're at. And then Control D and make a duplicate of this guy and double click on it and move the rotation of there. And then I'm going to rotate it 120 degrees. Well, you see what I did? I hit the box and not the, let's just nudge that box out of the way for a second. Shouldn't really matter as long as we go to the center, and let's rotate this 120 degrees. And then Control D again, 240 degrees. And you have that shape. We don't really need that box anymore. I'm going to go ahead and right click black just so it'll be black. But our lines are even, so now I'm going to Control G and group that together, and I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees. And then I'm going to Control D and make a duplicate, and grabbing this handle, I'm going to mirror it like this. And you see what you've got. Control G and group it together. At this point, you can make it a little bit smaller. And this is definitely where you want to duplicate. Control D, make a duplicate, and then we're going to take that 4-point right there and go down there. Now we can, you don't have to group it, but I am, Control G, Control D, and then we're going to take this one and put it, have it nudge right there. And then Control D again, and I'm really messed that up because really you don't want to do that. Let's back up here. And there's really no rhyme to reason why, but I want to go kind of straight across. So let's Control D and make a duplicate, and then go from there to there, and then Control D. And you kind of get this zigzag pattern, and then group that together, then with Control G and then Control D, and then take that high point right there and have it snap to it and then Control D, Control D, Control D. And you've got a pretty unique pattern that's lines going every which way. And, you know, like I said in the previous video, if we would have maybe shaded one of them and they'd be different shades, and then you could play around with it. I don't think we can take the lines away, because if we do that, all the lines will be gone. So let's put the lines back by right-clicking. But then you can add white. You know, look. I mean, look at the pattern. It actually totally changes when you add, like, if we fill that in with a little bit of gray. It looks like these are going in or these are coming out, and that's a pretty cool pattern. There's probably a lot you could do with this. I'm gonna back up here. That's really all I wanted to show, but we'll back up here till we get just one of these. Let's ungroup this. And I don't even know if this will work. I hadn't tried this. Well, let's take this one and shade it in a darker color. Control G and group them, and then Control D and duplicate it, and move this right there to that node. Control D, Control D, Control D. And then when you do this, Control G for group, Control D for duplicate, grab it and have it snap to it, and Control D, even though, because I did not move it all in one good stroke, it didn't pop to it, and I'm a little bit off there. You got to really get on that node to have it snap to it. And there we go. Now it's working. And now you've got a total different look. Anyway, kind of a fun project. Hope that helped. Thank you for watching.